We're recording.
Are we recording already?
Yeah, we're recording.
Oh, come on. You're a bloody quick win, mate.
Yeah, episode 24.
24.
Seeking Focus.
Seeking Focus.
Welcome to Seeking Focus, a podcast that provides photographers and videographers with a place to critically compare technology, share ideas, and enhance their skills.
All right.
Yeah. We should do a beatbox version of
What
that.
are we talking about today? I don't even know. Talk to me.
We're talking about buying a new camera and all the pros and cons that go with it.
Oh.
Yes. So we both recently went off and bought ourselves some new cameras, very different to what we've originally had. So we've gone full circle on our styles of cameras. I needed to get a new camera because I'm doing a bit of traveling coming up, and I love taking still photos and long exposures, especially during the night. But I also love taking video. Now the problem, of course, was trying to carry around a Canon DSLR or and one of my Black Magics, fully kitted up. You'd be looking at about 15 to 20 kilos just in those two cameras alone.
Yep.
So the logistics behind that were ridiculous, especially if you're going to be doing a lot of traveling and hiking and stuff. 20 kgs of just camera gear is too much.
That's a lot of camera gear, man.
It is a lot of camera gear. So I decided that I was going to move up into the mirrorless world, which is something that I've really been holding off on doing. Went off and wanted to get a mirrorless. And, for me, it's a mirrorless camera that does video plus still. So that's what I went for. So I've combined both video and still into one. And we'll get into what I bought in a second. You also got yourself a camera.
I did. I actually went out and bought a full cinema rig.
You've moved into my territory.
There we go. Come on, Mr. Black Magic.
No, it's actually funny because we've got both cameras rigged up, sitting on a table in front of us. No one can actually see them. We can. Well, actually, maybe we should get some photos of this and post them up. So basically, you've gone from a DSLR for both photos and video.
No, mirrorless.
Sorry, mirrorless, my apologies. I keep saying DSLR. Soon I'll start saying SLR as well, just to make it even worse. So you've gone from a mirrorless camera, which did your videos and your stills, to a dedicated video camera, which is a pro-grade camera, and it's...
Cinema line.
Cinema line. It is ginormous by comparison to what you've been shooting with.
Yeah.
I've gone from ginormous to smaller. So it's an interesting combination. We should probably tell the listeners what cameras we went off and bought. What did you buy?
Oh, come on. All right, I bought a Sony FX6 cinema line camera.
Oh, FX6.
And what did you buy?
And I won't lie, I was actually considering buying one myself. But the reality behind it is it doesn't do stills, so it wouldn't have met my needs. So
it's big as well, man. That's the problem with it.
Yeah, it's actually, I would say it's probably bigger than my Black Magic.
Definitely is.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
But
you know what? I think it's definitely the size. Actually, I had a shoot with it, was it last week? And the client goes, new camera. Oh, sweet. They are getting bigger. And I was like, yeah, there's a reason why it's bigger, though. That's the thing. It's basically making sure that the camera is a lot more stable when you're holding it. It's a lot more stable, and also it just feels a lot more professional in hand. But okay, let's talk about that later. What did you buy? Come on.
I promised myself I would not buy another Canon because of all the issues that they had with the overheating and so on. But
so you bought a Sony.
I was on the verge of buying a Sony. I was looking at the Alpha L1 or whatever it is.
So you were looking at A7 R5, right?
A7. Well, that was one of them. But then there was the other one, which the A1, I think it was. So.
A1, yes.
Yeah,
but that's very expensive.
They are. So I was looking at both of those cameras, and I was like, I want to get those cameras. Because I was definitely not going to buy Canon. I was not supporting Canon anymore. And then someone mentioned a camera by Canon, which caught my attention because it did everything I wanted it to, and it was small and it was nifty and it had autofocus, something which I've not had in a very long time with my cameras, because I do cinema manual cameras. It still allows you to obviously run manual lenses on it if you want to.
Yeah.
You can rig it up for that purpose. But the camera that I was made aware of and caught my attention was the R5C, C standing for cinema.
Oh, okay.
But it is still very much a still camera and a cinema camera. So it's got...
That kind of doesn't make sense though to me, because I mean, which cinema line camera is a photography camera?
Well,
none.
The interesting part behind it is it's actually got a dual switch, which everyone bitches and complains about the amount of time it takes to start up the camera and switch it off and stuff. But people like to complain. I've looked at it and I've compared it to other cameras, and it's no different. It's just people bitch and complain about how long it takes to switch off the camera from stills and go into video mode. But the reality is, when you switch off a still camera, it takes a few seconds to clean the sensor. Yeah. And then when you turn on a cinema camera, it takes a few seconds to start everything up and clean the sensor again. And it's just doubling that time as per any camera. So people just complain and whinge. So this camera has actually got a flick switch. So if you turn it across to the on position for stills, it gives you the same menu structure as all their previous cameras, including the R5, which was known for overheating, but since has been firmware upgraded so that it doesn't overheat. And so people
it takes more heat.
It takes more heat. So the sensors become, they've told the sensor not to switch off unless the heat is much, much higher.
Yeah, right.
Which is a good thing if you're filming and you don't want it to switch off on you, but at the same time I sort of wonder, well...
Yeah, do you burn it out?
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm pretty sure Canon wouldn't go off and, burn out their cameras, to do that. But anyway, nonetheless, it's one of those things. So it's got the same menu structure as the R5. It's got the same menu structure that was on their DSLRs, like the 5D Mark IV, Mark III. So you turn it on, and if you've used the Canon before, you feel like you're still using exactly the same camera. The only difference, of course, is it's much higher resolution. It's faster. The technology behind it is amazing. There's a few extra options, eye tracking and stuff like that. So when you've got it in still mode, it is 100% a still camera, and it works like a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, and it's a great camera. You flick the switch across, and there's like a small 2-second, 3-second delay between switching over to video, and suddenly you have a completely different menu, which is based on the cinema line of Canon cameras, so like the C70 and all the rest of the other ones that are there. So it actually has almost like a twin personality in there, and it looks like a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, but it has the functionality of also a cinema grade camera. It also records in 8K. And it will do 60 frames per second. It'll shoot at 120 frames per second.
In 8K?
In 8K it's 60. And in 4K it's 120 frames per second.
That's pretty good.
Full frame as well. So
that's pretty good. Yeah.
It is an impressive camera. And why? I mean, you could get a Sony that has similar specs. Let's be honest, right? Yep. So why did I still turn back to the Canon?
Well, that was my thing, because I mean,
I was adamant. I was like, that's it. I've had enough. I never want to speak to Canon again. I hate Canon. And suddenly I show up with another Canon.
So the thing is that's the question that I asked you as well. I said, Canon doesn't seem to be looking after its clients or customers. Well, that's my thing anyway.
Well, yes and no. I mean, in this particular case, they looked very well after me, because the price that I got this camera for was below wholesale. Which, and it came with a V-Lock mount battery as well, an Anton Bauer, which was $500.
See, the thing is, I'm not talking about from the price perspective. I'm just talking about from a Mark III, for instance. For 5D Mark III, fantastic camera, workhorse, fucking fantastic.
I've still got mine. You sold yours.
Yeah, I did. Then they try to do something, whatever else they try to do with Mark IV, and that's just totally, failed as far as I'm concerned.
No. The Mark IV was a vast improvement on the Mark III.
Yeah, let's agree to disagree.
Well, I've still got both of them, and they're both working strong.
Yeah,
they both have their benefits and downfalls. But the Mark IV version did have touchscreens. It had a better focus system.
They haven't upgraded it to a point, the way I see it, that I want to upgrade it to the Mark IV. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
And then the video component was really suffering compared to what Sony was basically giving out to customers, and it's the whole amount of people that I know that switch from Canon to Sony is astronomical.
Oh, no, I agree with you.
And I think they really shot themselves in the foot by doing that, a couple of years ago.
No, there was that period where there was a lull, where honestly Sony just took off in leaps and bounds ahead of them. Canon tried to introduce, C-Log on the 5D Mark IV. You could do a firmware upgrade on it. There was an additional cost to get that happening. And basically what ended up, you got a cinema sort of camera, but it had, realistically out of the 30-minute limit on recording.
Yeah.
The codec was huge, so, it used to chew up memory. Look, it worked and it was better, but so you could get raw video, but it just really didn't hit the mark. But I mean, it wasn't designed as a video camera. It was a DSLR. It was designed to take still photos with the option to take some video on the side if you needed it. So, yes, it never was designed for that purpose. And it was a shame. It could have been a lot better, but it wasn't. But it was still very much a DSLR, which is a still camera, and it did a great job.
True.
Sony came along and introduced a better part of their camera to video. So they produced a much better mirrorless camera that basically could do stills and video. And people jumped on board with that because it was good. The autofocus was sensational.
Yeah.
To this day, I think Canon is still lacking in the autofocus department. But
this new one, maybe, obviously, I haven't used the new one. I haven't actually seen it. I don't actually know much about it. But, surely they've improved the autofocus and eye tracking and everything else.
Heaps of the options that you've got with working with the autofocus is sensational. Huge, vast improvement to the earlier cameras, and no doubt about it. But, I personally don't have too much experience with the Sony. I have used them a couple of times. The autofocus on the Sonys was sensational. A lot of people were saying that the Sony still has better auto function and tracking features. But what type of difference is it? Is it substantial?
Yeah.
That's debatable. And it also depends on your filming style and what you need. The chances are I'm going to probably use this camera as a manual camera still. It will be nice to have a few auto functions there when I'm traveling and I'm taking photos of the kids and stuff. I'm not going to break out the cinema lenses for that. But it's not as good, I've been told. I'm happy with it personally. Coming from a camera which has no focus at all to a camera that does, I'm just like, wow.
Look, I think the focus component, you really need to be able to tweak it and be able to find out how far you can push it, basically. You know what I mean? So I think you got to own the camera for at least 6 months for you able to sort of touch on all the bits and pieces that it's actually allowing you to do.
Yeah. And one of the biggest drawbacks of this particular camera, which everyone is complaining and bitching about, is the battery life. Now, the battery life is limited. If you're shooting video, you're going to find that your videos run for 35 to 45 minutes per battery. So it's not exactly, the most... the battery could be a lot better, right? But the reality is it's still the typical little Canon battery that fits inside the body. There's only so much you can really get out of a small battery, And if you are going to be doing video and you're going to be shooting in, a 4K or 6K or 8K, the reality behind it is you need an external battery. But you can rig these up quite easily. I do, yeah. And there's a couple of different setups that you can do on this, and they don't really increase the size of the camera that much. We'll get into that later on, but yeah, look, I'm quite impressed with the camera so far. I will be putting it through its paces a little bit later down the track, but from what I've seen so far, I'm very impressed with it. I'm very happy with it.
It looks pretty good. I mean, you just showed it to me now, and before the obviously recording of this podcast, but it's impressive. The only thing is with this lens is you had to buy another lens, right? Because you have to use RF lenses now.
Well, you get the adapter, which means, and we'll get into this later on, but you can get an adapter, and the adapter is actually quite affordable, which I was surprised by. I thought they were going to be, what was the brand of the adapters that you used to use? Metabones, which are like over $1,000, $1,500.
It was actually quite expensive. I think I bought my Metabones for like $700. Almost $800.
And that was actually quite cheap. And the Canon ones are over $1,000 generally for an EF sort of adapter. So I was surprised when I found out that the adapter from Canon, a genuine adapter for that matter, was only about $120. And then you can use all your EF lenses. But look, we're getting ahead of ourselves because we'll be talking about that a little bit later on today, because we're going to be talking about new cameras and what you don't really consider when you're buying a new camera, the hidden costs. And we'll get into that in a second. But tell us about your Sony FX6. What's good about it? Why did you buy it? And, is there anything so far that you found that you don't like about it?
I guess, look, there are definitely a lot of things. And I think before you buy a camera, you do need to do a lot of research. Yeah. And, as much as this is a cinema line, FX6 camera, it doesn't shoot 8K like your Canon does. It only basically goes to 4K.
And my Canon's only a third of the size of your camera.
Oh, cry, whatever. But look, now the reason why I bought it is, I guess, to be... number one, I really liked it, and I saw a lot of reviews about it. And I think it's one of those things where you kind of go, you need to move up to that space to be able to produce a lot different, better work, the way I look at it anyway. I don't really have a proper answer for you, to be honest with you. I just really wanted it. It's not a gimbal camera the way I look at it. Not like, I've got the Sony A7S III. That would be my gimbal sort of go-to. And this one more of a tripod handheld kind of shooting. It does give you a lot more flexibility with built-in ND filters. It does give you a lot more flexibility with ISO. It does give you a lot more flexibility with audio. So when I'm recording on this camera now, I did a job last week, a theatre production, and I basically recorded 4 channels directly into the video file. So when I'm editing in Final Cut or Premiere or DaVinci, I can actually select which channel I want. You know what I mean? So that's a huge benefit for me, because then I've recorded audio directly from the mixing desk, from the audio person, straight into the XLR inputs. Then I've recorded another audio onto the on camera mic, and then I recorded another one from my Rode mic that was on the top of the camera as well. So I've recorded literally 4 channels, and then when I was editing, I can just flip from one to the other. So when I had audience clapping, I just click and then go into the next one. Do you know what I mean? And so that, to me, that's a huge benefit. Where the A7S III doesn't have that, unless I'm pretty sure you've got to buy additional handheld thingamajiggies. I mean,
or a field recorder, or like a H4 or H6 or something like that. Or sorry, quick question. A lot of these cameras don't come with the top handle, which houses all the audio sounds.
This one does.
It comes with the top handle.
So it comes with the top handle with the monitor, and that's pretty much it. So the handle, as in the side handle that you hold the camera to. Yes.
Okay. So how many channels does that record live? Is it
without it or with
it?
4.
4
audio channels.
Believe it or not, my camera, okay, I keep getting confused. The 5R5, it's at the R5C, because I'm used to saying 5D.
That's right.
It causes me a bit of grief. That actually doesn't come with it. You can purchase it. Tascam produces an audio input microphone system on the top handle sort of thing as yours. It is quite bulky. I personally don't have any need for it, because I do all my production external to the camera. But you can do 4 inputs. It is an option. You have to play around with it a little bit. I think standard it's 2, but you can actually make it into 4, but that's a story for another time. But you can actually get them from my camera as well and do the 4 inputs. But that's once again, I do my stuff external, so for me that wasn't really a selling point. But anyway, please keep going.
Look, I totally understand. And I mean, a lot of people complain about this camera from a visual point of view. It's fantastic. Like the image quality that comes out of it, the codecs that come out of it, it's fucking immaculate.
Did you just swear?
No, you didn't hear that. But it's, I really love the sensor. I really love the quality of the camera. It's amazing. The only downside with the audio is when you strip the camera down, if you do want to put in a gimbal and you strip it down, and you got no input on audio. So there's no 3.5mm jack to plug your lapel in or whatever else.
Does it have an onboard microphone?
It does have a onboard like a scratch mic. but that's about it. So you will have to sync your audio in post-production if you're recording it to...
And what's the quality of that microphone built into it? Is it half decent or is it pretty dodgy?
I'm pretty sure it's pretty dodgy.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the sort of, a lot of people, when they sort of buy these Sony FX6s, they basically just complain about that. It's like, like if you want to put the camera on the gimbal, or if you want to basically just try to make it smaller, then, like removing the top handle, removing the screen, and you just want to press the record button, that's the only thing we have to do with it. Like, you can't just have a audio input jack, like a 3.5mm at least, sort of thing. Which I understand kind of why they did it, but then, the flexibility is not there. And that's, a lot of people sort of, whinged about it. Look, the FX6 is pretty much an entry-level cinema line, other than sort of FX3 and FX30 now these days. I still think it's amazing camera for where it is. I mean, it's not cheap as well, but yeah, just the sheer of size of it is really good for hand holding. And I've noticed, like, you kind of, I think when you're sort of walking with the camera, it kind of handles it differently. It's sort of really funny thing to say, but I've noticed the same thing doing with my my S7 S3, and the image is a bit different. I mean, it's got stabilization on it, but like, I don't know, this one feels a little more raw, like a real, it's a really different feeling. And the thing is, you can't really tell by just watching YouTube videos. You have to really try it yourself. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
so one of the things that everyone recommends is to actually go hire one of these cameras and use it before you actually purchase it. Now, I'm not sure about Sony, but I know Canon will actually allow you to rent a camera from them. The one that you're going to buy, you can rent it from them. And if you decide that you basically do want to buy it after renting it, they will take the rental cost off the camera.
Yeah, right.
So say you've had it for 3 days, whatever the rental cost is, like $100, they will take that $100 off the final cost.
Is this from like a normal shop though, or do you have to go to a specific Canon distribution center?
Each shop is slightly different. I personally went to Sun Studios, which is Canon basically, and they have that deal there. So other stores, I don't really know what they do. I do believe a few of them still do that, and it's basically, they've got... it depends on the size of the store. I mean, if you've got a really small store, Canon's not going to be leaving demo cameras there for them because they cost a fortune. Yeah. Sun Studios is nothing but Canon, so they've got everything there. And then basically you walk through the door and you say, I want this camera, and it's sitting there. You can actually use it in the store. The batteries are charged, and they'll, everyone there works with Canon, so they know their Canons. Ironically, a few of them also work with Blackmagic, so I felt really at home there. It felt like there was this bond, it's like brother. Yeah. So, at the end of the day, if they could recommend a camera, and I know that they work with a Blackmagic, so they know what we're looking for, then it would work for us because they understand what you're looking for. You're coming from a particular brand. You're looking for something similar, if not better. They can say, this will do the job, this won't. So that was handy. If I'd asked them about Sony, they would have looked at me blankly and told me to get out of the shop. But
I guess Sony is the biggest contender for Canon at the moment, I think, as well.
I mean, Nikon's gone off and released their 7.8, Z8.
I would not have a clue.
Z8 is their budget version of the Z9. Z9 is meant to be like the Alpha 1, the cream of the crop, best camera they've got. I've actually used the Nikon Z9 for a client shoot. It doesn't work the way my brain works, and one of the reasons I stick to Canon is because their structure and their layout and their cameras just gels with the way I function.
Well, you've been using it for years and years now, right?
Originally, I was looking at the Canon by comparison to Sony and Nikon and everything else that's out there. And the Canon was the one that gelled with me because just where I thought the button should be, it was. So it was almost like I designed it. So it worked for me. Nikon has always, for me personally, has been backwards. Like everything just what should be there isn't. Where I expect it to be, it's somewhere else. So it's never worked for me well. And having to go through menus and stuff has been a nightmare. I have used Sony. Sony is meant to have a really bad menu structure. I actually didn't mind it too much, to be honest. I
got used to it now.
I only used it a couple of times, and I found that I understood it quite well.
So the menu system on the FX6 is actually really good. I actually really like it. It does have like a shortcut as well. So you basically press the I can't remember the menu button or mode button, whatever it is. I can't remember, so I can't see it from here. But you press it once, and it takes you to like a quick shortcut. So you can set up that shortcut to whatever you want to see.
Yeah.
And then when you press it for longer, for like 3 seconds, it takes you to a full menu. You know what I mean? So you can actually go a lot deeper into changing your settings and other things. And I really like that because I never really sort of had that. And but 90% of things you can change with that shortcut. You know what I mean? Which is fantastic. But
interestingly enough, and I appreciate shortcuts. Right now, Canon in their menu structures has done something very, very interesting. They've gone off and created, to a degree, a similar menu structure to, believe it or not, Blackmagic.
Right.
So Blackmagic, you can do changes very, very simply on the screen. There's multiple screens. It's pretty, it's pretty straightforward. They've actually incorporated a lot of the functionality of the menus from Blackmagic into the Canon camera. On top of that, now this is the interesting bit. I can't remember the exact number, but I believe there's 13 keys scattered all over the camera. You might have noticed them, and they're all labelled. So you got key number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. It's all the way to 13. They're shortcut keys that are programmable to whatever you want to.
Sony's got the same thing.
But have you got 13 keys?
Oh, come on, mate. 13.
I'm still trying to figure out what 13 functions that I actually use that are going to use.
I think Sony's got about 7 or 8. But
So basically, the shortcuts are on the screen. They use a Blackmagic sort of concept, so which is really simplistic and really straightforward. And it's not convoluted like some of the other ones. Nikon isn't. It's a minefield. I struggled with Nikon. Sony wasn't too bad, but the Blackmagic's always been the simplest for me.
Yeah.
And Canon's utilised a lot of that, so that was a big selling point. Plus the 13 keys, which are a bit excessive for my needs, but they're there. Shortcut keys all over the body, and I think they're great, but there is one problem with them is, they're not labelled. They've got a number on them, and it's up to you to remember what that number is. So I guess you plot those keys based on where your fingers are logically. Like, you've got your focus controls at the top next to the shutter button. You have your ISO lower down. You play it up, and you can also possibly program those keys to also simulate previous keys on like the 5D Mark IV or 3, so that you're familiar with them. So there is that advantage. I was really happy. One other thing that Canon's actually introduced with their RF lenses, which I have seen with one other camera, but I cannot remember which one it was offhand. Normally you've got the focus dial. All right, you've got the zoom dial. So if you're not using a prime lens, you're using a zoom. There's a dial there, so you can zoom the lens in and out.
On the lens,
They've released a third dial on it, which you didn't notice that, did you, when you picked it up before? There is a third dial that's actually placed onto the actual lens, and that can be programmed to whatever you want it to be. So you can use that to adjust ISO, shutter speed. You can.
But wouldn't you bump it and then change your ISO potentially on that?
Well, it is actually clicked. So you click, 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 click. If you're using it for video, it's going to cause you a few issues if you're using the RF lenses. You can actually take it back to Canon. This is an interesting one. And for a small fee, they will declick the lens for you.
Oh, right.
Which is really nice because it's got a cinema touch to it.
Yeah, interesting.
I personally don't really use the third ring too much. So having it, being able to sort of adjust things, which I don't want to be able to knock and stuff, I'm just leaving it the way it is. I do use cinema lenses. So
you've done a lot of research on this thing. I mean, with my Sony, I was just like,
it's for the moment you're walking past the shop and you went, shit,
buy it. They just gave me a good price and I was like, stuff it.
Yeah, in fact, I don't even know what the price was. I just bought it because it looked good.
Pretty much.
No, I did do a lot of research. So we're going to get into that in a second. But look, there's both cameras have got their pros and cons.
Yeah.
I'm looking at them now. I'm salivating over both of them. My poor Blackmagics and the 5D Canons that I've got, they're all sitting in the background crying. They're like, please don't forget about us. But yeah, they're both great cameras.
Yeah, they are.
I do have one question. I know this has been bugging me since I saw your camera today. Why do you have two monitors on your camera?
So one of them is to control the camera, so it's a touch screen as well. So you can
it's only a menu on that touch screen?
So it's menu mainly, driven menu.
Can you actually see what you're shooting as well?
Yeah, of course you can.
So you can use just the one?
Correct, yeah, but it's quite small as well, so keep in mind, if you put the Atomos on it, so I've got the Atomos 5-inch on it.
I'm looking at that. It's probably a 3-inch screen.
Yeah, it looks about 3. Yeah,
the mobile phone's bigger than that, but
very small. Yeah, and a lot of complaints about that as well. I think when it's time to release sort of FX6 Mark II or something like that, I've got a feeling they will basically improve that a little bit more because And that's one of the hidden costs as well. You kind of, you have to buy a 5-inch minimum sort of screen to be able to see properly what you're shooting, without sort of squinting, without sort of, try to get. And I mean, that second screen, the Atomos one, it just shows you the image itself. You don't get anything else from, like menus or whatever else. You're just making sure that you frame correctly. But yes, that's one of the reasons. And that's one of the reasons why you sort of, when you rig it up, you kind of, it's all these hidden costs.
Yeah, which happens to be what we're talking about today. It's only taken us 20 minutes to get to this point. I think it's about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Could be 30 minutes. I don't know. I wasn't really paying too much attention. All right, so
I think both cameras, the hidden cost of it is the battery. That's number one fault, I think, isn't it?
Battery for me, battery wasn't really an issue. Basically, that was the least of my problems.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So you're about to buy a new camera. You've decided you're going to take that leap. You're like, oh yeah, I'm going to get a camera, and you think to yourself, what am I going to get? There's so many options out there, and it's a buyer's market. There's heaps.
Definitely.
You can go Sony, you can go Canon, you can go Nikon if you're that way inclined.
Nikon.
Nike. There's other ones out there. There's Panasonic. There's so many different cameras out there that you can buy. You just got to find the one that gels with you. Okay, so you do your research. You spend, like I did, probably about a month in looking at every single detail, reading about this, asking questions about that, looking at reviews, looking at this, understanding the pros and cons. You spend so much time. Well, you didn't. You just walked into a shop and bought it. But with me, I spent a month researching this camera. And when I was ready to buy it, I was like, yeah. And I went in there and bought it. Now, the reality behind it is you probably don't need to spend that much time. I'm probably just very anal about these things. And the reality is when you buy it, 3 weeks later, they will be releasing a new model of it. So, there's probably an R5C Model 2 coming out at the end of this year. I've heard rumours. Which
always is.
Yeah, which I was a bit disappointed because it took me almost a year to buy everything. So do your research. Don't go too crazy because the reality is the market will change by the time you bought the camera and you've walked out the store. So just make sure it's roughly got what you need. There's nothing worse than buying something and then you find out the one feature you really needed just wasn't there.
Like onboard microphone. Well, I mean, in 3.5 mil jack on their body.
So
itself,
you didn't do any research. That's
no, I knew about it. It's just I was ignorant because I locked everything else.
Because you just wanted to get a big, sin cam. You wanted to join the folds of the Black Magic people.
Yeah.
All right. So you've done all your research. You're about to walk in and buy yourself a camera. The one thing that you don't really think about is batteries. Like you said, batteries is a big thing, right? Now, in my particular case, my batteries have got a range of about 35 to 45 minutes when you're shooting video. Right?
This is the original battery with the camera itself?
Yeah. So basically, you sort of go, okay, well, I'm going to have to buy several of these batteries. And then, you look at the price and they're about $150 each. And that's on sale as well. So they're about 170, 180.
Yeah, Australian, yeah.
So if you're going to be doing, a long sort of shoot, you would need so many of these batteries and you're going to have to constantly be changing them. And you're going to spend, just for one battery, $150 on sale. So say you bought 3 batteries, you're looking at $500 to $600 in batteries.
Correct.
Okay. So, and then if you turn around and say to yourself, you know what, these batteries aren't suitable because they're only going to give me 35 minutes and then I've got to change a battery in the middle of an interview or conference. I can't be changing batteries. So
that's
you think,
right.
all right, I'm going to get a V-Lock. Right, so you got to add the cost of a V-Lock on there. Now,
V-Lock battery.
V-Lock battery, that's right. So V-Lock batteries can range from about, I think they're about $250 upwards. I've seen some as $700.
Yeah, they can be expensive.
Yeah. So with my particular camera, I went off and bought an FX Lion, which is it's not a very expensive or well-known brand. But the reason I bought it is because my camera allows me to run an external power source to it through a USB-C plug, not a standard USB-C because it just hasn't got enough power. It's a PD version. PD means just higher amperage and voltage, and it can produce a lot more power, which this camera is very, very, it loves its food. It wants to eat lots of energy. So you need to buy a V-Lock battery. You need to make sure that it actually has the same connection. In my particular case, if I was just using a dummy battery straight off a V-Lock, my camera won't shoot in 8K, 60 frames per second, unless it's getting a full source of power through the side.
So it's power hungry for that.
It is. So if I was to put a V-Lock with a dummy battery into it, basically it's a cheap way out of it. it would work, but it wouldn't give me 8K. If I'm running a PD USB-C cable from the V-Lock battery to the camera, not using a dummy battery, it allows me to shoot in 8K.
Wow.
So you need to make sure you get the right battery for it. So
that's one of the things that you potentially got to do really a lot of research to be able to find that out.
Yeah.
And then try to obviously minimize your issues with it later on.
And if you're experimenting, you put the wrong battery on there, you'll fire the camera. So I ended up buying 3 batteries, so that was like $450 on the batteries, plus the V-Lock. So we're looking at about $700. Okay, so that was an additional cost.
And the cage as well, just to hold all that as well,
We'll
right?
get to the cage in a second, but so $700 in batteries alone just to run the camera, and that's not a very very big V-Lock. I mean, that's only like a 50 watt hours or something.
Yeah, it's 50 watt hours.
Baby, yeah. I wanted something small, lightweight. Then there's the cables. So you need to find the right cables, and
That's right, because just like with Atomos monitor, you can't just stick a El Cheapo cable. You know, like you can't stick a $10 cable on a like HDMI cable. You have to go proper cable, and that's $100+.
Well, it depends on what you do. Like, I mean, you don't want a giant. You can buy long cables cheap. They have to be a high wattage cable to run a PD system.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you buy a ginormous one, then you've got like half a meter of cable lying on the side of the camera, which just doesn't work. So you need to hunt around for the right length. You need to get multiple ones to try them out, because there's no one size fits all.
Doesn't end, does it?
Yeah. So I think I bought a Blue Condor cable. Which I don't like, because the plugs were ginormous and they were sticking out the sides, and that was $60 just for that little USB-C cable.
Yeah, I believe you.
Right? I ended up jumping on eBay and buying a whole bunch of different ones and trying them out, and I found one which I ended up only paying $12 for, which fits perfectly between the camera. It's nicely tucked away. It's you can't even see it. Once it's all connected together, you can't see it.
Yeah.
So you spend another $100 in cables. Right. How did you go with your batteries? Did you?
Yeah, same thing. It's just so disappointing. Like you buy a camera for thousands and thousands of dollars, and when I had the when I had the shoot last week, I didn't actually have all the extra batteries because they just came in like a couple of days ago. But exactly the same thing. So the battery that comes with the Sony only lasts for about 45 minutes runtime. So when I was shooting thank goodness, because I was actually shooting in the studio, so I can then run directly from mains power to the camera to power the camera and finish the studio shoot. But I've noticed the battery only lasts for about 45, 50 minutes, maybe 55 max. So it's a small 35 watt hour. I don't know, what do you call it? Is it 35
watt hours?
Watt hours. Yeah. So it's quite small. So then I kind of go, well, that's not really going to be useful for me if I'm going to be shooting on field to be able to, full day of shooting. That's just not going to, work. So then, exactly the same thing. Thank goodness I had a V-Lock battery. I had a 130 watt hour battery. So I kind of go, all right, let's use that. But then exactly the same thing. I had to buy so I've sent a message to like Facebook groups and stuff, and what do you guys use and this, that, So a lot of people sort of came back and saying they use the tilter V-Lock adapter, and that basically connects directly in to the actual back of the camera, and basically you can connect your V-Lock battery to that, which is great, cool. All right, so that was $200 and something. So then you kind of go, okay, cool, let's buy that. Then a lot of guys were saying, yeah, but just make sure you get the cheese platter or the cheese plate that goes on top of the camera itself as well, so that the adapter that you've just purchased for that V-Lock battery has additional support. Do you know what I mean? So it has 2 connections to the actual camera. So after a while, what it can do, if you don't do that, it will start wiggling around and start falling out because you start wearing it out. So then, okay, cool. So you got to buy an extra tilter plate on top of the camera to mount everything into to secure everything, and that's extra $90. You know what I mean? So you kind of go, all right, I can just buy one little thing, but then you kind of go, crap, I need this, I need this, I need this. So then I've got that 130 watt hour battery, and I was shooting a concert. That concert went for 5 hours, and the battery pretty much lasted for the 5-6 hours component where I was shooting it. So then I go, crap, I need to buy an extra battery if I'm going to be shooting for the whole day, 8-hour shoot. I need to be able to buy another battery. So I bought the IDX 98 watt hour battery and a 50 watt hour battery.
That's an NPF battery, so it's not a V-Lock.
That's the thing. It's not an MP. It's an SP or something like that. It's a different battery. That's what I'm saying. Like, you can't just use, so the batteries that you use for Atomos, you can't use those batteries in that.
Oh, really?
No, that's totally different battery as well. So that's what, like, it really pissed off when I sort of jumped onto it, and then I kind of go, all right, cool, I can just use my NP batteries that I use my Atomos.
Which you've probably got like about 50. Like
which I've got 10 or 15 of them, which is great. But then, no, that battery doesn't fit that camera because obviously it's much smaller and it's totally different battery.
So you've had to go off and buy completely new batteries?
Well, yeah, I bought, I bought almost like $500 worth of batteries. Then I bought another $300 worth of, the tilter, V-Lock mounts and, extra support for the camera to be able. So, mate, I bought a camera for, I'm not going to say how much because just in case my wife is listening, but, I bought a camera for that much, and then I had to spend an extra $1,000 just to be able to run the thing for a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
it's and on top of that as well, like, you have to make different changes and set it up different way, and like, it's such a hidden thing where a lot of people don't talk about it, you know what I mean? And it's just so frustrating.
Well, in my case, I mean, I spent $800 for the cables and the batteries, but I had no way of actually having the batteries mounted to the camera. So then I had to rig out the camera.
That's right. So you bought the small rig, right?
So I ended up buying. I was looking around for cages for the camera first of all, because you need to mount everything to the camra. And the camera
is obviously not strong enough to be able to hold that extra weight.
Not all that stuff.
Yeah.
Not what I'm going to be putting on it. So the reality behind it was I had to look around. I looked at cages. Now, generally speaking, in past, I've always found tilter cages to be a lot more glamorous, practical.
They do look
sleek.
fancy. Yeah,
they do. They look great. For some bizarre reason, Tilter dropped the ball on this one, and the camera cage that they produced for the R5C was horrendous. The thing was just ginormous. It was bulky. It was ridiculous looking, and I was just like, this is ridiculous. Small Rig has produced a cage which is very sleek. It folds across the camera in multiple.
Yeah, I really like it actually, because that microphone mount is really like on the side, so it's not really in the way, so you can still attach something else to the hot shoe if you want to.
Yeah, it's really good. It's sleek. It folds with the camera, so it doesn't bulk out. So I was naturally drawn to that. The one thing I don't like about it is that for some reason they've gone off of this spattered paintwork routine. So it's actually not a black cage.
I don't mind it. It looks pretty funky, man.
I like black. I don't
you got any black or?
You can actually get. I've got a sale on at the moment. You can get pink cages and yellow cages and iodized cages
way. You can't do that to a camera, man. You got to have black.
Hey, look, it works for some people. There's a really nice red one as well, but I personally wouldn't get it.
No, thank you.
I like black. So I had to get the cage. Then what happens was the cage is designed to protect the camera and allow you to strap things on. So then you're like suddenly, well, what am I going to do for the V-Lock? I can't mount it anywhere. I have to have a mount, just like you had to have the cheese plate and all the rest of that. So a very long time ago with my Black Magics, I created my own little swing arm, which basically allowed you to put the V-Lock battery directly behind the camera, but with a little pull of a little button, it used to flick down and allow you to get to the back of the camera, because the Black Magic has a screen on the back of the camera.
That's right, it does,
a lot of people put their battery there and they can't access that screen, which is ridiculous.
So you have to have an extra screen on top of that again to be able to see properly.
And it doesn't work the same way. So I created the swivel system, and somewhere along the line, Small Rig decided that they were going to build exactly the same concept, and they've just released this little system that slides into the bottom of the cage for the R5C, and it creates a swivel system, and it holds the V-Lock battery, and I think it's only about 140 grams. It's all complete, so it fits into the camera. It's all very, very neat. So you have to buy that. So the cage was about $250 or something like that. The swivel system is about another $140. So cage wise and batteries,
the cost keeps going up.
Well, it's over $1,000 already. Okay, just to get the battery working with the camera. Right. And then you have to put in the actual cage has a Swiss Arca Swiss, whatever it's called, mounting system, so you can actually slide it onto the Ronins and stuff like that. But if you're not using an Arca Swiss, you got to get yourself a mounting plate on the bottom for your Manfrotto, whatever you're using, your Miller tripod. So there's additional cost there. The Miller tripod heads, the slidey bit costs about $140. That's another additional cost. So now you've got your battery on there. You're like, yeah, the camera works. Yeah, I can turn it on. Oh shit, I got to get a memory card.
Yeah, true,
Yeah.
true.
I'm not sure about you, but with this particular camera, it takes CF Express cards.
Yeah.
Yours takes CF Express cards, yes. Yours is a Type A, right?
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mine's a Type B.
Mm.
So they're not interchangeable.
No.
So what I found is with every single camera that I own, each one of them has its own specific type of memory
Yeah,
card.
what a pain, yeah.
So you're constantly buying new cards. You can't use any of the old cards.
But yeah, that's true. And I mean, if you're shooting, even for a couple of hours, you won't be able to. That memory card's got to be huge.
Exactly. So I had to buy a CF Express card, and I couldn't use my old CF Compact flash. My CF Compact. I think they're called Compact memory card. I couldn't use my CF
CF,
Fast
that's right,
cards.
yeah.
I had to buy CF Express cards, but not a Type 1, which I also had. I had to buy a Type 2 or Type B.
Yeah.
That was another $1,000. Right, so we're now $2,000 in accessories.
Yeah.
I'm like, you need a secondary card as well.
So can you plug in a external drive, like an SSD drive or anything like that, like you did with your Blackmagics? You haven't tried it?
I haven't tried that. I do not know. But I mean, because I want this to be small, having so much stuff off the back of it is not something that I want to do.
True.
If I'm going to do that, I'm just going to pull out the Blackmagic. Right? This is meant to be like a travel camera.
Yeah. Travel / quickie kind of.
So having things
gun.
hanging off the top of it and stuff,
Yep.
it's not going to work for me. So there's no point in even considering that. So, but it has a secondary, as most professional cameras do. They have a secondary port, which is an SD card. Standard SD.
Yeah.
No, wait a second. It's the high-end SD
Of
card.
course it is.
Right? It can't be the normal one. So once again, had to go
So
buy.
you're gonna have to have 300 minimum, 300 megabits per second minimum.
Yeah, for this camera as well.
Write sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So another $500 for that.
Yeah, for something fairly large, yes,
Okay,
definitely.
so now we're up to $2,500 just for a memory card and a battery. And I'm like,
Far out.
yeah, did you have to buy any more cards or did you?
I'm actually, look, I do have CF Express, a Sony, the Type A, whatever it was, I can't remember now.
So
But
you were able to use your old cards?
Yeah, I can, but saying that though, from a, it's only 160 gigs as well. So for me to be able to shoot high frame rate, really high resolution, that will only last me for about 35 minutes itself. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, saying that though, you can put the SD cards in the Sony, and they will still take fairly high frame rate. So if I'm shooting at 4K 60 or 50, it will still work quite well with those SD cards, which is kind of a bit cheaper than the CF cards. But yes, I had to buy additional cards, and you preferably sort of using the Sony Tough cards, which is the aluminium ones, which are really good. But yeah, they're bloody expensive, and it's just like you kind of think to yourself, yeah, great, buy a camera, but all this extra stuff that comes with it, it's just like you have to.
Definitely. Look, and I have to say, CF Express is a lot cheaper than CF Fast. I could not believe how expensive CF Fast
And then you've got to do all the research, right? Because then you've got your Sony Tough cards, you've got the Angel Bird that you've got.
Yeah.
What else you've got? You've got like ScanDisk ones, and
Actually, ScanDisk is actually one of the most expensive at the moment.
oh, is it?
Yeah, which it's changed because Angel Bird used to be the most expensive, but as some of us have recently found out, Angel Bird is not as amazing as they used to be.
Yeah, you had one fail on you.
I had failed straight from the packet and went out, did a shoot. It failed on me at the shoot, and I lost 3 days worth of work. Thankfully, it was only B-roll. And look, Angel Bird did come to the party. I had to send the card off to the supplier, who then sent it off to the distributor, who then sent it off to Angel Bird, who
Could
then
they recovering data from it?
yeah, like they came back to me 2 months later and they said, we can recover, some of your data.
Then it's going to cost you $1,000 to do it.
No, it's part of the courtesy service. But by the time I would have gotten the data, it would have been 3 months after the shoot.
Yeah.
Which, let's be honest, no client is going to wait 3 months. All right, so it was a
Mate,
disappointment.
imagine if you're shooting a wedding or something else that conference of some sort that's really required, mate, you have to do it. No choice.
Yeah. How do you explain that to your client? Oh, by the way, if you wanted photos for socials, you're going to have to wait 3 months.
Yeah.
And then I've got to edit them as well, so 3.5 months.
Yeah.
So those cards are, one of those issues. An additional cost. So we're suddenly, sitting at about $2,500.
Yeah.
If you've got a new card, you've got to get a new card reader.
That's true. I haven't actually thought about that. Actually, you know what? I've been doing exactly the same thing, because if I'm shooting on my CF card, I'll put my card reader in my Sony A7S III, connect that Sony to my PC, and then download it.
So you're
from
using
that.
your camera, your old camera.
Yeah.
I would probably not do that because they might have some differences and you might end up
That's
stuffing
true.
the data. So,
Yeah, you do have to buy a reader. You're right.
So CF Express card reader, a decent quality one, $200.
Mm-hmm.
So we're at 2.7 now. Okay. Anyway, so
And the client looks at you and then go, "How come you charge so much?"
exactly. Yeah. And let's not forget the amount of time you spent researching this. Anyway, so we're looking at $2,700 for so far the camera, the battery system, and
the rig. Yeah, the rig. I said the what did I say?
the cage.
Get your cage or whatever.
So
else,
it's rigged up.
Yep.
Fantastic. We're ready. Hang on a sec. Shit, we don't have a lens yet.
True.
Okay, so we're back to square one. We need to get lenses, right? So in your case, your camera basically uses all the standard Sony lenses, right?
Yeah.
Is it an E lens?
So, oh my god, how you put me on the spot? I can't remember now. What's it's a
I think it's an E lens.
It is. I think it is.
It's an E. So there's so many
But yeah,
lenses
I've got a lot of G Master lenses, so thankfully I could just straight
move it across. Yeah. In my case, I've got EF lenses. Everything that I do, Blackmagic, all the Canon cameras I've had have been EF lenses.
Yeah, and you've got like 20 of them because you're
29.
What?
Yeah,
29 lenses.
I'm selling. Would you like to buy a lens? An EF lens.
No,
Anyone out there want to buy a lens? Going once, going twice, going. Yeah.
Oh my god.
So suddenly I've got this new camera that doesn't take EF lenses anymore.
That's right.
Right. It can take EF lenses. You can buy an adapter.
Yeah, that's right. I was mentioning earlier.
Yeah, we mentioned earlier. So that was another $120 or whatever it was.
And I did exactly the same thing with the Sony. When I was moving from Canon to Sony, that's why I bought the Metabones. But then they go, oh yeah, it's working fine, and autofocus is still the same. Well, no, crap, it's not. That's my personal opinion. Anyway.
But that was Metabones.
Correct.
Okay.
But saying that though, back then when I was moving everything across, Metabones was probably top of the range. What you can get.
It still is. It still is.
And well, yeah, but I actually found that the focus was lacking, huge. So lacking in autofocus detection, a lot of ways. I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to bite the bullet and actually buy a 24-70 just to show general thing, just to get it over and done with. But yeah, sorry, go on.
Okay. Well, in my case, I had a whole bunch of EF lenses. It made sense to buy the adapter. So we're ballparkish now. We're looking at 2,900 with the adapter.
Yep.
The adapter allows you to use the EF lenses that you've got sitting around, so you don't have to go off and buy another 70 to 200 because you've got one sitting there.
Yep.
The one thing that I did notice though was that, and the reason I did get the adapter was not so I can use autofocus lenses. It was so I could use my EF Cine lenses. Because I've got a number of those now.
And it's fine because they're all manual lenses.
They're all manual, so I don't really stress.
Yep.
But if you're buying a new camera for this new technology, and you've got all these new lenses that you can buy, which actually give you better optics, using the old system, it'll get you through. But the reality behind it is, it's never going to be quite as good as the new lenses.
Yeah, I agree.
So
and I think to have a proper glass, it's a big, huge thing. I mean, in the past, I've used El Cheapo glass, and there was so many issues. Like, as in, you kind of, I guess, like if your eye's not trained for it, you probably go, oh yeah. But then, like personally, I've noticed half of the images were not sharp. Other images had, distortions. Other ones that had the chronic aberration. There was a lot of the one that you had problems with Samyang. It was a sort of tingy greenish or whatever.
Green purples. So it's the color casting was just really horrific. So look, at the end of the day, you buy the adapter because you can still use the old lenses, but you sort of think to yourself, well, you know what, maybe I should invest in an RF lens just to start myself off, so I can have that all the auto features, I can have everything that I need. It's with the Canon cameras, one of the L series lenses that they produce for the RF is the 24-105 f4. It's probably the cheapest one that they produce. I actually have it for the 5D 3 and 4.
Yes.
And I love that camera. That's my go-to lens when I'm traveling, because it does wide, it does zooms. If you're doing
does everything.
Long exposures, f4 is fine. So it works. So I thought, look, it makes sense to buy one of those as my first lens. So I threw one of those in, and the cheapest ones you can buy is like, I think 1,700. They go up to about 1,900 or something like that. But anyway, but that is the cheapest lens you can buy in the RF range.
So what's the cost are we sitting on now?
So
let me get a calculator. So we're roughly more or less about $2,700 with batteries, the bits and pieces.
We're looking at about $4,500 at this stage.
So plus another $1,700. So yeah, about $4,500.
$4,500 at the moment so far to get this camera working. Now, there's a few extra things. Do you want to get yourself a UV filter for your new lens?
No.
In your case, no. You're happy to destroy your lens. I went off and bought another Polar Pro. That was another $140. So we're looking at 4.7 now. What else did I buy? What else did I buy?
$5,000 extra.
There was a few little accessories for the cage that I bought.
So the thing is, it's okay for what we just did, and it's fine for us. The way I look at it, and it's my personal thing, I guess, it's fine to do so if you make money out of it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So basically, if you make money out of it, you're doing work for clients and everything else. But the thing is, if you're getting into this industry, you would not spend $10,000 just like that.
No, you wouldn't. And
because
it's one of those costs that you don't really think about. You're like, you hunt around for the best price. Oh, look, it's $6,500, it's $6,000, it's $7,000. And you buy the camera, and then you go, oh shit, I've got to spend almost as much as what I spent buying the camera on accessories to just get the camera working.
Yeah.
So this camera, the RC5, and I'm allowed to say this on podcast because my wife actually knows the cost of this one. She said to me, "How much does it cost?" And I thought, I'm going to have to tell her the truth because one day she's going to find out when when I pass away and she has to get rid of all this gear. She's going to go, I swear he said it was less than that. Anyway, so the camera cost me $6,000, and that was actually way below
$6,000 Australian. Yeah, so you're looking around sort of $5 for US, something around that.
Yeah, well, that was actually a cheap price.
Oh,
they're normally around $6,700.
Wow. Okay.
Right. So basically, add on all the additional expenses. This camera has cost over $10,000 just to get it working.
Yep.
All right. And there's other little things here and there that you're going to have to get if it's your first camera. Tripods, gimbals, filters. There's no ND filters on this.
So the thing is to be able to shoot something, really wide open, like 1.4 or something like that, because it does have autofocus, so you should be able to do it. Yeah. And it's no problems. But then you got a
variable ND, or you're going to have to get a matte box with filters on the front, which is more money.
That's another $1,500,
depending on the quality. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it just keeps going and going. It depends on what you're doing. But ultimately,
so with my Sony, that's one of the reasons why I did pick that Sony FX6, because that has ND filters. It does have a lot of that. What are you smiling at?
Nothing.
It does have a lot more flexibility with ISO, and it's really good in low light, and it's really good in high-end light. On
the subject of ISO, do you have a dual ISO on that camera?
I'm pretty sure it does, yeah.
Yeah. Once again, Canon went off and did the same concept as Blackmagic. Blackmagic has had a dual ISO base ISO for a very long time. So
all the new Sonys have the same thing now. So as soon as you switch to 12,800 ISO or something like that, it just goes straight into a different mode, and the image is much cleaner as well.
Yeah. So the range for the Blackmagic was 400 and 3,200. The Canon is 800 and 3,200, which I found really interesting. That the base was 800.
The Sony is much higher than that.
Yeah. So look, it's great. It's fantastic buying a new camera, but just be aware of the additional costs. And that's pretty much what this whole episode's been about. Right.
And I mean, look, I've done this for a while now as well, and I think you don't need it. It's great to have it. If you can afford it, go for it, yeah. But if you can set up lights properly, if you set up the environment properly, you can get away with a cheaper camera. And I mean, honestly though, how often do you actually shoot with AK?
Every day. I shoot AK all the time.
The thing is, I shoot everything in 4K pretty much, because I want that flexibility to be able to punch in. I need to be able to have that sort of cleaner image, and downscale it to 1080p to supply to a customer client.
Let's not forget, if you are shooting in 4K or 6K or 8K, you need to have the storage space on your computer at home.
That's another thing too.
An additional
The other day, actually, I shot a two-hour interview. Actually, I'm just trying to think what I did, but it was just something ridiculous. I shot everything in RAW on the MI Atomos recorder, because I just go, you know what, let's try to do this, proper way. And I'm pretty sure I had like 2 terabytes of data, man. And I was just like, how am I going to store this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And when the client says, can you put it on Dropbox or Google Drive for me to download, you're like, sure, it'll take me about 3 months to upload. It should take you about another 9 months to get it down.
Actually, the funny thing is I just did a FPV drone shoot, and it was with one of the local guys here in Melbourne, and I was laughing because just talking about storage, it was just on the GoPro, right? And then basically I flew the drone and had probably about 5 or 6 clips, and I put them through Real Steady, so stabilize everything because it's obviously FPV, and output that to ProRes to be able to have that flexibility in color grading and all the other extra things, and 4K, this, that, 50 frames per second. 5 clips just from the GoPro. Guess how much it was?
I'm not even going to hazard because it could be anything.
240 gigs of data. 5 clips.
Who would have ever thought that a GoPro could be so memory intensive? But
look, the clips were like 5 minutes each, and it was just, when I spread everything out, I was like, there's no way I'll be able to give this footage to him through my Google Drive or Dropbox and
I actually now just charge outright a fee for storage. I go down to the local computer shop, buy a hard drive, upload it. Here you go, send that story. So drop in another $100 basically for storage plus
that's a good idea.
But with the comment that you said earlier on, do you need all this equipment? Yeah, no. The chances are probably no. We do it because it's a profession, so we need to. But in saying that, I actually shot a wedding the other day, and I had a camera sitting in my bag, which I hadn't used in a very, very long time. It was an old Blackmagic.
The little one.
Yeah, the little pocket. It's like the GoPro version for Blackmagic. Yeah, it's got no screen on it. It's got no nothing. So
it's just a box.
It's a box, literally.
It's a square box.
Yeah. So you got to rig it up. You got to put a monitor on. You got to put a handle on. You got to put batteries on it. And it takes Canon batteries, ironically. And, I actually did use it. I put it on a tripod as a backup camera just to grab audio, because where I was recording, it was a wedding, and it was the acoustics in the cathedral everywhere. They had twin priests, and they were in different parts of the room. So I just put it there. So it's sitting there. There's no harm in using it. I actually ended up looking at the footage on that, and it was only at 1080p, which the client wanted 1080p anyway, so it didn't make any difference. The quality of the picture was actually quite sensational, and I ended up using a large portion of it in the video production for bits where I was crossing over and stuff, and I needed some backup footage. And it looked amazing. It had that cinematic sort of feel to it. It was soft. It was vibrant, rich colors. That camera cost me $400 to buy with a lens. I bought it secondhand, obviously.
And the thing is, you can't buy that camera brand new anymore.
No, you can't. They released the 4K version of it if you want 4K, and I believe that they're about to release another version of it, which might be 6K. But anyway, that's a really old camera, and it did an amazing job. That thing's like 12 years old.
Totally agree.
And I used it in the end footage, and substantially as well. So you don't need to have the latest and greatest. It just comes down to being creative, being a good editor, getting the right shots. It helps if you're trying to do the big 4K sort of productions, 6K productions, but it depends on your client as well. Most clients don't want 4K. They want the dumbed down 1080p version.
Well, they use it for social media, right?
Even TikTok.
For you. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Use your phone. So you don't need this level of clarity and stuff.
Quality.
I mean, if you're doing big production work, then by all means, it's definitely one that's you need to have. But if you're just doing it as a hobbyist, even your phone nowadays will.
It's amazing. Yeah.
The Samsung S21, which now they're up to 22, 23. Has inbuilt stability, and it shoots at 8K. That's a mobile phone. And the stability was, I have to say, I was really impressed. I was chasing my daughter on a bicycle.
Yeah, you're right.
And it was perfectly smooth. It was like a drone was flying after her.
Well, when I went to Antarctica with one of the guys, he had that phone, and it was just, when I looked at the footage and the zoom on it, like the seal or whale was on the other side, and he zoomed into it, and it was crisp, man. It looked fantastic.
Technology nowadays, it's available. It's like, the reality behind it is, when I'm out at functions and stuff, I don't have my camera with me. I'm not going to carry a 20-kilo camera with me everywhere I go. I have my mobile phone. I think most of my family photos are shot on a mobile phone. That is tragic to say from a photographer and a videographer point of view. but it is the camera you have on you, which is the best camera at the time.
I agree.
Your mobile phone's with you everywhere. Now, we've pretty much come to the end of this episode.
How long are we going for?
Oh, just over an hour, actually.
Okay.
But I did actually want to take a step back, and you asked me, well, I made the comment that I was never going to go with Canon again, but somehow I've ended up with another Canon. Much to your disgust. you were like, spinning at it.
Just a little bit, yeah.
You know, it's just sitting on your table now, and you tried to knock it off the table before I noticed. Just casually swung past it.
Just too expensive for that, mate. I wouldn't have a heart to do it for you.
All right, so the reason I actually went back to Canon, even though I swore I never would, you know, when they had particular people doing reviews of their cameras overheating in the snow, hanging out of quad bikes because in the snow it's -30 and it's going to be harder for the camera to overheat. Stuff like that really pissed me off. Don't release products onto the market that are faulty.
Yeah.
From the word go, they were faulty. Like they'll say it wasn't faulty, but yeah, it was. If your camera's going to switch off after 15 minutes of using it, and you've got to wait for half an hour for it to cool down so you can use it for another 5 minutes, that is faulty. Yeah. That is not doing
especially for the price that you're paying.
Yeah. When the R5 came out, everyone rushed out to buy it, and there was so many of them sold. And then suddenly people started finding that it was overheating. And look, maybe they did put the temperature range too low. That supposedly it's been fixed now. It doesn't happen anymore. Who knows?
Yeah.
Look, and let's not lie to each other. Sony did exactly the same thing. They were all rushing.
Look, I think everyone's competing against each other. Yeah. So at the end of the day,
they were releasing cameras that basically just were overheating.
Yep.
The R5C has an inbuilt fan that sounds like a helicopter if you put it up on full speed. It stays cool. It doesn't overheat. I think there's not been a single person that I know who's got one who's had it overheat. But
I think it's definitely the compactness of the actual camera itself, and that's one of the reasons why, like if I'm shooting a conference for the whole day or whatever else, I just know that I can rely on this camera, on the FX6. I just know it will work. It doesn't overheat. It doesn't have any problems. It will just run. If I give power to it, it will just do its job.
That's
Simple
the Blackmagics. That's the Blackmagics are exactly the same.
Yep.
They're like workhorses, all right? But so why did I go back to it? Now, they had fixed up the overheating issue. It had a fan. It was still waterproof. It had great dynamic range.
Yep.
It recorded in 8K. It did 60 frames per second in 8K. It was sensational.
How many pixels does that have?
Still cameras, I believe. The still photos are 45, 46 megapixels.
That's pretty high.
And predominantly, I want a still camera. That's one of the reasons I bought this one. I wasn't going to go the R5 because that's just left a really bad taste in my mouth, even though technically they've released a new version and it's a lot better and it doesn't overheat and the firmware's fixed everything up. I believe there's a Mark II coming out shortly as well on the horizon. I wasn't going to go that purely because for me, it was like, it was tainted. There was nothing wrong with the camera. It's been fixed, but it's tainted in my head and I would never have been happy. So I bought this one. But why did I go for Canon as opposed to the Alpha 1 or whatever the Sony one is that, is the competing camera for this? It came down to a couple of things. First of all, I could get an adapter that worked effectively with it, and I could use my Cine lenses from Canon. Now, I've spent a small fortune on those lenses, and if I can't use them, then so that was a big step. The next thing that actually was a big selling point was the fact that even though these are new batteries and they are super powerful by comparison to the old batteries still work with this camera, and I have probably in the vicinity of about 30 Canon batteries.
This is the older, the Mark III, Mark IV batteries.
Yeah, it's exactly the same size, except they've just got more power in these ones. So if you've got the old batteries, you can still use them. Granted, you're not going to get 45 minutes of your video time. You're probably end up with about 30. But they still work. And if you're using it for still photography, you're still going to get a shitload of photos. Right, so I don't have to throw all these batteries out, and I can still use them with my Blackmagics. So I don't have to buy new batteries. I don't have to buy new lenses. Flashes. Now, I didn't think the flashes would work with this particular camera from the old 5D Mark IV.
Oh, yeah.
And, I've got transmitters, which will allow you to use multiple flashes. I've got 4 flashes plus transmitter. The amount of money I've invested in flashes to replace those would be astronomical. They work on this camera.
Yeah.
So it's backwards compatible.
That's true. With the Sony, if you did go for a Sony, you have to go brand new flashes because you have to have a specific Sony flashes.
Yeah. So for me, it made sense because I had 30 batteries, I had 4 flashes, I had transmitters, I've got 29 lenses, which I'll eventually change over time. But But I had so much stuff already, so much infrastructure already there.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to go off and buy new lenses, new this, new that, new that. The only thing that I had to replace, other than the camera obviously itself, was the memory cards. So that was the only real additional cost.
That's about $1,000.
Yeah. But imagine if I had to buy, 30 to 40 grand worth of Cine lenses again.
Yeah, of course.
29 normal lenses again. I had to buy, 30 batteries again. It would just be astronomical. So it was a no-brainer because it had every feature that I wanted.
There's a lot of benefits for your advantage.
Yeah.
That basically, there was no point of switching to Sony, although Sony potentially would give you, a lot more different flexibilities, but then your whole infrastructure will change as well.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, if you're starting from fresh and you don't have anything, then Sony's great. Sony's a great option.
Canon's great too. I mean, if I didn't have anything,
I can't believe I would sort of record that and sample it over and over. Sony's great. Canon's great. Canon's great. Canon's great.
Look, the only reason why Canon is sort of rubbing me the wrong way is just I wanted to use Canon. I really loved the color science and I loved the picture quality, but when I was getting into the video component, they could not deliver what the Sony did.
Definitely.
Simple as that.
And that was the reason that I was looking at Sony to again, when I was looking to buy a new camera. They've come good with this camera, I believe. It made sense.
A lot more testing to be happening.
Yeah.
And hopefully,
But just the infrastructure. But I do stress that if you are starting from scratch, you're going to have these additional costs, which you're going to have to cover. So Sony, Canon, Nikon, whatever the hell you buy, there's going to be all these additional costs.
Yep.
And you need to be mindful of that. And that's what
I think every camera will have additional hidden costs. You just have to do a lot of research, a lot of investigation, and then just know what you're up for. Simple as that.
And just know that as soon as you buy it, 2 weeks later they'll be releasing another camera which is better than the one you bought.
Yeah. Well, people are already talking about Sony FX6 Mark II.
There you go.
And I'm just like, crap! I just bought it. I mean, look, the camera's been around for last 2+ years, or whatever it was, which is kind of understanding that if they want to release one. But yeah, it's frustrating.
It is. We've come to the end of the show. I do have one last parting question for you, Marty.
Shoot.
And this is not a dig at you in any way, but
there we go.
You've just invested in a Cine camera that's 4K. How does it feel joining the fraternity, even though technically I've had a Cine camera that's been 6K for the last 5 years, and I've just moved up to 8K?
Yeah, I'm not fast.
You're not fast.
No.
Come on.
I seriously think though, man, it's 6K, 8K, 12K what Blackmagic is releasing. It's just a lot more money in memory cards, a lot more money in batteries. It's, mate, 4K, I think, I seriously think Sony, for instance, the reason why they're not moving up to the sort of 6K, 8K, I think although A1 does have obviously 6K or something like that, but, like the reason for that is they really, really, really refined the 4K footage, and it's really fantastic. And I don't think you need 6K or 8K or 12K to be able to. Stop laughing, mate, because you know what the thing is, like, to me, I would, if I had a 6K or 8K camera, I would never shoot on 6 to 8K. Simple as that.
I remember back in the day when people were like, oh, I don't need 4K, I've got 1080p, and why do I need more than 1080p? Because that 1080p does everything. It does everything for me. Who needs 4K? And no one needs 4K.
I think 4K is still here for a long time.
It is. And as much as I stir you about it, the reality behind it is, with my Blackmagics, with the 6K, I really didn't shoot using that format very much. I did do some macro stuff, which
is great. Yeah,
really good. I could zoom in, and the clarity was just amazing. But for the most part, 4K is more than you'll ever use.
Yeah, totally agree.
I hear people talking about, I've got 8K and I shoot in 8K and I do these close up. And I'm just like, just walk closer to your subject. You don't need to really zoom in post-production. Yeah. It's each to their own. 4K probably is more than anyone will ever use. It's nice to have 6K. It's also even better to have 8K.
Or 12K.
Well, yeah, and let's not get into 12K. It's another story in itself. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's another episode, I think, finished. Did you want to
that
add
was
anything?
a long one, though.
It
was an interesting. I think we both of us are a bit of a gearheads, right? So we kind of, once you start us off with gear, then we just don't stop.
Yeah, but it was interesting to note that you spend almost as much in accessories to get the camera running as what you spend on the actual camera itself.
True.
And that is something that's really worth noting, especially if you're starting off new and you don't
you've got to
realise.
keep that in mind, definitely. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Marty, and we'll catch up in the next episode.
Definitely. Talk soon.
Take care. Bye, guys.